Amsterdam, oh, we have plenty of space. There's space for about
company shelf, but now it's a tourist attraction. You can go up into this tower with an elevator, and then there's an indoor and an outdoor viewing part at the top. Very nice views of Amsterdam and the harbour. And there are also 3 swings on top of this building. You have history before we reach the canals, a little bit of history of Amsterdam in a nutshell. Are you going to cruise to Basel in Switzerland? Yes, huh?
Yes.
On your way to Basel, you're going to see a lot of places that were founded by the Romans more than 2,000 years ago. But Amsterdam wasn't. The Romans never came here because we're in a swamp, and they did not want to get their feet wet. So they stayed south of the Rhine, which was the northern border of their empire. And so Amsterdam was not founded until about 1275. This year we are celebrating the 750th anniversary. And it was founded by some fishermen who tamed the marshlands along a river, the river Amstel, and they called their settlement Amstelredamme. Today's name derives from that, Amsterdam. The dam. And so the first people, they settled around this dam, which diverted the water. They lived from fishing. They tried agriculture, but that was very difficult in the swamp. So eventually they became traders. In medieval time, and they brought back from the East and the West Indies spices and other exotic goods. And that made Amsterdam a very rich, and also said, okay, you can become a Catholic again, or you can leave, and if you don't do this, then we will kill you. So lots of people left their country and they came to Amsterdam as religious refugees, not only Protestant people but also a lot of Jewish people. Why to Amsterdam? Because Amsterdam promised freedom of religion, and no other place in Europe did this in those days. And because of all the immigration, the population grew between 1570 and 1620 from 30,000 to 100,000 in only 50 years. So it actually tripled in 50 years, and the city became way too small. And so they had to make the city larger, and they did so by digging 3 new canals. From here, where we are now, in half a circle, round the old medieval part of Amsterdam to the harbour. If you look at the map of Amsterdam, it looks like half a circle. And those 3 canals, they quadrupled the city's area, and along those canals they built 6,500 new houses and warehouses. And that refers to the princes of Orange, who are the forefathers of today's royal family. And so we're entering here. We're going to sail along this canal, and then a little bit further down we will swap canals. We will also sail a little bit on the innermost of the 3 canals. You open them slightly, should be fine. Now we're going to see also a lot of houseboats. You see some examples already here. These boats, they don't go anywhere. They're all houseboats. And people started to live on houseboats after World War II. That's when the housing crisis started here. And still a problem today, but that's when it started. And people started to live on houseboats. In those days, converted, the ones you see here, they look a little bit like a floating bungalow. And all those houseboats, they have electricity, they have gas, they have a postal address, they have garbage service, and they're also connected to the sewage system these days. Now, those houseboat owners, some of them, they have no curtains, and sometimes they have the curtains wide open to let a little bit of light into their boat, because otherwise it's very dark inside. And so especially this time of the day, it's still very early, I cannot take any responsibility for what you may see, And also, if you see people in a houseboat waving at you and smiling at you, they're most probably tourists. Because the local people, they usually go too fast, we make their boat rock. And that's also why there's a speed limit here on the canals at 6 kilometers per hour, 4 miles per hour for these tourist boats, any other traffic as well. Oh, look, there's somebody in a houseboat taking a picture of us. Okay. Here on this one, on this white one here on the right-hand side. See if we have tourists or locals. See if they want to wave at us or smile. Let's have a look. Oh, person has disappeared. Oh, no. I think they're locals. Not waving and not smiling. Okay, so here on the right-hand side we have a church. This church is called North Church. Amsterdam was a Catholic town, became Protestant during the Reformation, but tolerated all other religions. But because it became a Protestant town, and they built 4 new Protestant churches. at the beginning of the 17th century. If you look at the tower of this church, if you look up, you see the year 1622, and that's when this church was built. And this church was built for the Windsor, and that was their Protestant church, North Church. And the Catholics, the Protestants, they did away with all the saints. So a Protestant church is never named for a saint, so therefore it's called North Church. And the other ones are called West, East, and South Church. Now, a little bit about the houses over here. Now, we're going to see different houses here along the canals. Not all of them, by the way, are from the 17th century. Some of them did not survive the centuries and they had to be demolished. And new houses were built in their place. So we see 17th, 18th, 19th, even 20th century houses. But there are two different kinds of buildings that we can distinguish. First of all, we have old warehouses. After this bridge, on the left-hand side, there's going to be quite a few good examples of old warehouses. So Amsterdam imported a lot of goods from all over the world, which were stored over here in warehouses, and then from here was sold all over Europe. So Amsterdam was kind of an Amazon.com very early on. And a warehouse, see here on the left-hand side, you see these that have what we call a point gable in front of the room. And a point gable indicates it was a warehouse at one time. And another thing that you see sometimes on warehouses are shutters in front of the windows. And see here, they've taken the shutters off, these here on the left-hand side, but a little bit further down, there are 4 identical warehouses with red shutters still on. So warehouses in the old days did not have any glass windows because glass was too expensive. So they used to close the windows with those shutters. And they're still here today, but today for decoration. Because all these houses that you see over here are all apartments these days. And usually one apartment on each floor. Domestic homes, they had different gable types. They had step gables, bell gables in the shape of a bell, and neck gables. And you also see some examples of those around here. After the next bridge, on the left-hand side, is going to be a very famous house, and that's the house of Anne Frank. So it's going to be on our left, number 263. That's where Anne Frank and her family hid from the Nazis from July 1942 until August 1944. The house was actually the company office and warehouse of Anne Frank's father. They lived in a different place in Amsterdam, but here in this company office and warehouse, the father prepared a hiding place for his family, because the Nazis, they started to deport all the Jewish people from Amsterdam from 1942 onwards. And in those days we had a population of 700,000, of which 90,000 were Jewish. And only 5,500 Jews survived the war here because of all the deportations. And so, lots of Jewish people went into hiding, so did the Frank family. And the former business partners of the father, they helped them survive during their time in hiding. And then, after 2 years, they were betrayed by somebody who was in extermination camps in Central Europe. And only one person survived, and that was the father. And Frank wrote her famous diary here. So the house is coming up here on the left. You see, before the house, there's a lunch cafe. It says Lunch Cafe Dialogue. And so the house is the one after that. There's a lady standing in front of it now. Well, they're standing in front of the lunch cafe. And they're now walking to the Anne Frank house. Look, they're standing in front of the Anne Frank house. Now that's the one here on the left-hand side. It has a little white sign saying Anne Frank house. So here, coming up on the left, a very nice church. This is the nicest one, I would say, out of the 4 Protestant church. And West Church was built for the rich people here on the Canal Belt. North Church for the people in the working class district, and West Church for the rich people. And this church is known for 2 things today. It has the highest church tower in Amsterdam, 85 meters, 250 feet. And it also has the grave of the most famous painter of the 17th century, and that's Rembrandt. Rembrandt, he was a portrait painter here in Amsterdam, very successful. Did anybody visit the Rijksmuseum, the National Art Gallery maybe? Nobody? You did, so you saw his paintings. But he died in 1669 and he was buried in this church. It was a custom in those days to bury people inside churches. From then on, all the houses had to be built from brick or stone, and that's what you see over here. All these houses are, say, from 1580 onwards and later. So if you build wooden houses and they sink into the soil, then what happens if you build stone or brick houses? They sink faster, huh? So you have to make a foundation for those houses. Now, underneath Amsterdam, there are 2 sand layers, which are very stable. And one is at 12 meters down below, which is about 36 feet, and one at 50 meters, 150 feet. And so when people started to build in brick and stone, they drove wooden piles to the first sand layer, and they built the houses on wooden piles. And so one building here, which is like 3 windows wide, stands on about 80 wooden piles. And so the larger the building, the more piles were required. You could not really build really high. 6 floors was about the maximum, especially with brick, because otherwise it would crush. So that was a bit of a problem, and that's why you also see that everything here is kind of the same height. Now, as long as those wooden piles were submerged in groundwater and air couldn't get to them, they wouldn't rot. But here in Amsterdam, the water tables are always varied a little bit, especially along the canals. And so problems were unavoidable, and that's why you see a lot of leaning houses in Amsterdam. I'm going to show you a good example of leaning houses later. That's a problem that can be fixed, but it's very expensive to fix. And so today we fix the problem with concrete, and we don't use wood anymore, because concrete cannot rot, and it can also be driven deeper to the second sand layer, and therefore we can now also build taller buildings like you saw in the harbor. Now, where did the wood come from? It mainly came from the Black Forest in Germany. So if you go to the Black Forest today and you talk to the local people there, they still call the tallest trees in the Black Forest Hollanders, because at one time they sent them to Holland for building purposes. We even have a joke over here. We say if you turn Amsterdam upside down today, you have the Black Forest over here, because of all the wooden foundations. So if you look at the houses and you see a lot of uniformity, building laws were very strict. You had to be, no more wood was to be used, to standard widths. So you see that most houses are 3 windows wide. There was very limited scope for the house owners to place their own personal stamp on the property. You could vary the number and size of windows in the facade to make your house look different. Or you could decorate your gable. So it's always important in Amsterdam to look up, because most of the nice decorations are on the gables of the houses. Now this canal here, because of its proximity to the working class district, there was a lot of warehouses. So most of them, they do not have nice decorations. We're going to see some very nice decorations on other houses on the next canal. So here not so many. But you will see if you look up that every house has him and a hook. Look, that man there, he's standing right on top of the roof, on the left. Wow, they're doing construction work there. But every house has a hoisting beam and a hook. That's to hoist up goods or the furniture. Because these houses are very narrow. Also the staircases in an Amsterdam house are extremely narrow. They're similar to the stairs here into the boat. So if you want to move house, you cannot get anything large to the upper floors over the stairs. So you have to hoist things up. And there are also no elevators in any of these buildings. There's no space for an elevator. Property will cost, and there you can buy property which is cheaper and 3 times the size of what you can buy here. But 500,000 for 1 floor here. That's the starting price as well. If you want to rent now, Amsterdam is one of the most expensive cities in Europe. 2,300 for a small place per month. If you look at an average wage, it's between 2,500 and 3,000 per month after tax. So a lot of people, they cannot afford to rent or to buy here. Okay, so we have come to a point where there's an interlinking canal between to breathe in. Captain Paul is also doing this for the first time. Today the first time. And then there's this building here in front of us, and yeah, very soon you'll see it here on the right. That's the old Court of Justice of Amsterdam. Unfortunately, people on bicycles in Amsterdam, they're not so nice. You've probably noticed that when you were walking around the town. They have no patience with tourists and things like that. And what they also do, when they come up to a facility where they can park their bike and it's full, then they just take somebody else's bike, they throw it in the water and they park their own bike there. And that's also a favorite pastime of university students, throwing bikes into the canals. And to the extent that about 10,000 bikes end up in the canals each year. And we have 3 dredgers that keep the canal bottoms clear from debris, and they fish those bicycles out. And the canals are officially 6 feet deep. We always say, well, that's not 6 feet of water, it's 2 feet of mud, and 2 feet of bicycles, and 2 feet of water. But it's very true. You see sometimes this bicycle boat going round and they fish all these bicycles out. So we're going to make a right turn soon, and then I want you to look to the left once we've made the turn, because then you can see the 3 main gable types used on domestic homes. So we saw the warehouses with the point gable, and here we're going to see the step gable, the bell gable and the neck gable. It's nice and quiet here this morning. So the canal we just sailed on is one-way traffic, but this is two-way traffic here. And then there's an orange brick house which has a step gable, and then next door is a bell gable, that's shaped like a bell. And then look at number 421. The house number is above the door. Here 421 is leaning against 419. And you see that there's clearly a gap in between the 2 houses. Can you see it? And you can also clearly see that all the houses were built on their own. And the foundations of this house have been fixed, but the house will stay like this. And so if you live in a house like that, you have to sleep with a seatbelt on. No, it's not true. So they actually level the floors inside, or they use things like wood to support the furniture to make it level. But lots of houses in Amsterdam are like this. Now the next stretch of this canal is where all the rich people built their homes. This was the most expansive part of Amsterdam in the 17th century, and the rich people, they were not instead of 3 windows. And there's a very fine example coming up here on the left hand side. Very fine example of a 17th century double canal house. It has the double staircase leading to the main door. It has a very nicely decorated gable if you look up. Below the staircase there's also a small door that you will see, and that was the entrance for the servants. Look, this one here on the left with the double flagpole. So a family living in a house like this had about 5 servants, and also in the basement was the kitchen. Behind the door at the top of the staircase was the reception room, the ballroom and the dining room. And behind these houses are huge gardens as well. And double canal homes, they usually also had a coach house to keep the coach and the horses. And that house you just saw was built from natural stone. Now you see a lot of brick houses, and brick was very cheap, because we produce brick from river clay, and we have a lot of rivers in this country. But natural stone had to be imported from quarries. Natural stone, you could show that you were very wealthy. And we still have an expression today, if somebody's extremely rich as well. And so in the summer it was unbearable. And so all these rich people here, they also had a country house in the countryside, which they would usually go to for the summer months. Now there's not a lot of people that live in double canal homes these Amsterdam. She lives in a double canal house, and it's coming up after this. Of Amsterdam, the mayor is not elected, is appointed in this country by the king, and has a 6-year term, and then the option for another 6-year term. So this mayor has just done 6 years, and she's doing now another 6. And if you become the mayor of Amsterdam, then you get to live in this house. If you're no longer the mayor, you have to move out, and then the next mayor moves in. Hey, you see all these things here on the canal. Look, here on the right there's lights, and here on the left too. Now this is once a year. It's for the Amsterdam Light Festival. No boat, 7 bridges in a row.
Now you just jinxed us.
No boats, very good. See, there you go. You see the 7 arches. You can only see them from here. Huh? If you would stand on the bridge there, you can't see a thing. Yeah? But from here, from the water, you can.
You're good, you're good, you're good.
Okay, so yeah, there's something a little bit further down which we would like to show you. It will add on like 5 minutes or so. Do you have time or do you have appointments? Yes. Okay, you have time. We have, so we can do it too because not so busy this morning. It's not always possible. But there's something on both sides. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down and then come back. So you can see it on both sides as well. Now, first of all, for those of you on the right-hand side, the second canal from here, so not this first one, but the second one coming up, has a very nice view. It's a small canal with at the end a church, South Church, again one of those 4 Protestant churches built in the 17th century. It was actually the first one of the 4 that was built in 1614. And the view down this canal was painted by the French painter Claude Monet. And Monet, he spent a lot of time here, made a lot of paintings. And so the second canal along, you'll have to wait for the church. It slides into view from the right, not this canal but the next one. Then those of you on the left, you keep looking left, because on the left you see a collection of houses that are locally called the drunk houses or the dancing houses because they lean so much. And then we will do a U-turn, we will come back, and those of you on the right can see the dancing houses, those of you on the left can see the church, yeah? So see here the dancing houses. You see the one that's leaning to the left, and also the ones to the left hand side are leaning to the left, and then the one that says hotel is leaning to the right, and the ones to the right hand side of that are also leaning to the right. So dancing or drunk houses. And then you see here's the canal coming up, and there's South Church. Get ready. There's the church at the end of the canal, a very pretty view, and painted by Monet.
And y'all can open the window.
So like I already mentioned, before the war, 700,000 inhabitants in Amsterdam. Today that's 900 clothing, and at the end, the last 6 months, the last winter was very, very harsh. It was very an island in the harbor, which is in front of us. Look there on the right, there's a white building, and this building is from 1656. It used to be the base of the Dutch Navy. It's now the Maritime Museum. And in front you see a tall ship. See the 3 masts? It belongs to the museum. And so those ships, they sail to the East and the West Indies. Very dangerous and long. 8 months to get to the East Indies from here. Today's Indonesia. 8 months to get back. And you had to go through Spanish territory, Portuguese territory, later British were all main competitors. And so the Navy, they protected the trading ships. And there on the right, this green building that looks like the bow of a ship, that's the Museum of Science and Technology. And this is from 1997. And then in the distance you see a building that says Up, that's an office block, the Mövenpick Hotel. Here on this side, booking.com, the Music Academy. Building built on this island that they constructed in the harbor. And I'm going to show you what you can do if you still want to go into Amsterdam after the canal cruise and return to the ship later. How you can get from behind the station where we dock to the front. And so also on the left hand side there's going to be a small brick tower by the next bridge on the left. And this tower is called the Tower of Tears or the Weeping Tower. Now, why would they call a tower the Tower of Tears or the Weeping Tower, you think?
Sailors.
Say again?
Sailors.
Yeah, that's where the sailors left from, huh? That was the very spot where all the ships used to leave from to go to the East and the West Indies, huh? And half the men who sailed with the Dutch East or West India Company